The final race of the first round of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs coming up on Saturday night, and what better place to play host than a cutoff race than Bristol with the annual night race, the only race on the concrete this year at Bristol. Kind of a bummer, but excited to see how things play out on Saturday. Bristol, always one of my favorite tracks, dating back to when I was like 10 years old, rooting for Elliott Sadler. So pumped to see how things play out. The playoff implications exciting here, but also an exciting one from a DFS perspective. I think a pretty clear way to attack things here, and some good drivers who do fit the way we want to play things. So let's dive on in and get you set for some DFS on Saturday. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to break down the Bass Pro Shops night race with locks set for 7:30 Eastern on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Guess I should clarify that, maybe? Either way, 7:30 Saturday is when lock will hit. So if you, again, are a procrastinator and don't fill the lineups till later on, make sure you do so. You can do it right now. Lineup's already set. So you can do your lineups now as you're listening. We'll just get them in by 7:30 on Saturday night. We'll take a look at the track breakdown here in just 1 second. But first, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. A lot of good stuff there. For this weekend, we have our Week 2 NFL DFS preview podcast already posted. Myself and Brandon Gadula breaking down our thoughts on the main slate, some drivers, some players we're targeting each position, games we want to stack, and much more. Austin Swain previewed UFC Vegas 37. That is up as well on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. His thoughts on the favorite fighters in each salary tier, it's there. Also, of course, MLB DFS podcast every weekday still until the end of the regular season. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, college football fans, the highly anticipated Week 3 slate of games is set to take place this Saturday, and FanDuel and Facebook are teaming up to make sure you get the most out of your weekend. Introducing the Take On Anything contest presented by Facebook, a completely free-to-play daily fantasy contest centered around Saturday's 14-game college football slate. The contest is simple. All you have to do is build your best 7-player lineup and follow along as the games are played to compete for a share of the $25,000 prize pool, including $5,000 first place. Again, it's totally free, with matchups like Alabama versus Florida, Auburn, Penn State, Michigan State, Miami on the schedule. There is bound to be some fireworks throughout the day Saturday. Kickoff is right around the corner, so download the FanDuel app and get on the action today. Again, it's free. You should take free entries when they come. Eligibility restrictions apply. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Fantasy app. Let's take a look at the track breakdown here for the Bristol night race, and it's going to feel very similar to the past 2 weeks. The one difference is that we need to be even more aggressive in hoarding laps led on Saturday. And the reason is this race is even longer. It is 500 laps. That means there are 50 FanDuel points available for laps led, and a whole lot of them are going to wind up in the perfect lineup. Despite that, in last year's playoff race, if you go back to Bristol, only 2 playoff drivers were in the perfect lineup. That could happen again here. There are a couple reasons why, though, I still want 3 playoff drivers in most lineups. The first one is that race had a lot of volatility. It had some long green flag runs, but the playoff drivers had issues. Only 5 playoff drivers finished inside the top 10. 5 others finished 20th or lower. So they had issues. When there are fewer playoff drivers who finish well, fewer will be in the perfect lineup. Shocker, that's the way things work, which could happen again because Bristol is a volatile track. I just don't want to assume that's going to happen because it does seem to be kind of I would say more of a less likely scenario. Second, one of the primary lap leaders in that race didn't finish well. That was Brad Keselowski, led 82 laps, didn't finish well. And that effectively trims down the length of the race, where fewer laps are available for drivers who finish at the front of the pack. So again, it's going to be, when that happens, it's going to be more conducive to a 2 playoff driver build. And that could happen here because the drivers lead laps and wreck all the time at Bristol. But I will have lineups with just 2 playoff drivers, but it will not be my default. That's why the 3 driver build should work well at Bristol overall, but it also just gives us more shots at guessing right. Let's say you have 2 lineups, filling out 2 different lineups on FanDuel, which means 10 total drivers. You use 2 playoff drivers in each. That means you're giving yourself 4 total shares of playoff drivers, 4 tries to try to get it right. If you do two lineups with 3 playoff drivers in each, you get 6 shots at being right. Because looking at the drivers most likely to win in this race, the 10 most likely winners based on my simulations are all playoff drivers. So if you want to get the guys who are going to finish well, compete for a win, they're going to be in the playoffs. I want 6 swipes at trying to get that right rather than 4 if I'm doing 2 lineups, stuff like that. So I will have lineups with 4 with just 2 playoff drivers, but I'll also have some with 3 and I'll have some with 4. I think that 3 is the default. I will have some with 4. I'll have some with just 2 because I think that we do want to try to give ourselves more swipes at identifying lap leaders, and those guys are most likely to be the drivers who are in the playoffs. As far as the value plays, we can get some place differential there because Richmond is a very different track from Bristol. So finishing order at Richmond helps determine where drivers will start for Saturday's race, which means that if a driver who finished well or poorly last week, they're not going to necessarily run poorly this week as well because these tracks are so different. If we look at the drivers ranked 16th through 21st in my model, as far as projected average running position, they are starting between 18th and 28th for this race. So that's some place differential juice there. Ross Chastain is ranked 11th in my model in terms of projected average running position. He will start 17th. What this means is that we want to use a 2-pronged approach for this week. We need our studs to have upside via laps led, and our value plays need upside via place differential. So you need to have one of those paths to a big day because there are going to be a ton of points scored in this race. It's a 500-lap race. Point totals will be high. There will be some place differential there. So if you want to hang, if you want to compete, try to take down a tournament, you need drivers who can push that total high via one route or another. If a driver's starting 12th, projected to finish 12th, it's not going to do a whole lot for you. So gun for the upside. It will be available here. Try to take advantage of that and make sure your lineups are positioned to score enough points to actually take down a tournament on Saturday night. As far as tracks to emphasize, I'm looking at 2 different groups of tracks, 2 different buckets. The first one is concrete tracks because Bristol is concrete. So that loops in Dover and Nashville. But it can also feature some slick runs on tires. The fall off is not as large at Bristol as other spots, but that's because laps are shorter. Like a half second of fall off at Bristol is quite a bit when they're running, 16-second laps and stuff like that. So I will look at Richmond and Darlington too, those slicker tracks. And that gives me 6 races to look at, 2 at Richmond, 2 at Darlington, and then 1 each at Dover and Nashville. But some good drivers, I think, can emerge when we do that. You could look at the Bristol dirt race. I'm okay factoring it in and bumping guys a bit if they did well, but I also don't want to penalize drivers who didn't finish well. Like Kyle Larson, he had issues, wrecked with Christopher Bell. I think both those guys are fun this week. Ross Chastain didn't do well. I wouldn't penalize drivers for not doing well at the Bristol dirt race, and I also would not bump them up too much if they did well there because it's a very different track than what we'll see for this weekend. So to recap, the overall thoughts and strategies for this race, my default will be 3 playoff drivers per lineup. I can use 2 at times and I can use 4 at times, but the default will be 3. You can get some place differential via the value plays. We'll talk about some guys who fit that very well in the tier-by-tier breakdown. You just need drivers who can score a bunch of points via one route or another. If they can get you a lap sled, sick. If they can get you place differential, sick. If they can't get one of those, pretty tough sell for this week in DFS. And finally, I'm going to value Dover and Nashville pretty highly in terms of predicting who will do well, but then also Richmond and Darlington for some data. Sprinkle of the Bristol dirt race, but again, downplaying that because there were some really good drivers who did not run well there. That's the strategy. The question is, which drivers fit that? Well, let's do that now by talking about the tier-by-tier breakdown based on the salaries at FanDuel.com. Starting off with the elite tier, that is Kyle Larson at $14,000 through Chase Elliott at $12,500. And I'm going to rank Larson first, even though my win simulations give Hamlin the better win odds this week. There are 2 reasons I'm high on Larson. The first one is that he is amazing at Bristol. He has said flat out this is his favorite track. I believe that was the case a couple years ago. Larson's never won here, but he was runner-up in both 2018 races. He's led a ton of laps, and he's now in better equipment. Second, Larson has been great on concrete this year. They've had 2 races on concrete. Larson's average running position in those 2 races is first and first. Disgusting. So you put Larson in Hendrick equipment, put him on concrete. I think he could be unstoppable here. So Larson is my number 1 driver in DFS for this week. The guy my win sims do like more is Denny Hamlin. That's all due to what he's done in the 750 horsepower package. He has led 868 laps across the 10 races. Nobody else has led more than 682. So he's 200 laps clear of the field in this department. He'll start in the front row alongside Martin Truex Jr. because the outside lane is a pretty serious advantage at Bristol. I'd assume Truex will lead like the first 10 or so laps, but I think that Hamlin will take it after. It could be Chase Elliott too, because Elliott's starting fourth on the outside, but I think that eventually Hamlin will take that lead and run well on Saturday. So I do like both Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott. Their speed in Richmond to me was super encouraging. I was pretty down on Busch in this package, but running well at Richmond, I think to me says we can trust the track history, and the track history says he's a beast. He's won 8 times here. What more can you say? I will still put Larson 1 and Hamlin 2, but I'll put Kyle Busch 3, Chase Elliott 4. These 4 guys to me gonna be pretty tough to beat on Saturday night. The second tier is Martin Truex Jr. at $12,000 through Kurt Busch at $10,000. A guy I like here a lot, shocker, is Joey Logano. Logano's been great in the 750 package all year long. He has the best average finish of anyone in the sport in this package. His one win came at the Bristol dirt race. Again, I'm not going to bump guys up considerably based on that, but, it doesn't hurt. Logano starting third, which is not a great spot to be at the start of the race, and I'm also a bit worried about the lack of speed for the Penske cars during the playoffs. So that will lower me a bit on Logano compared to where I probably would have been previously, but I'm still in. I think Logano is a good option at $11,500. The guy with some place differential juice this week, but also some win potential is Kurt Busch. Busch is starting in 15th. He is there because of some issues in Richmond, and he's been better on the 550 tracks than the 750 so far this year. But Busch did run well in Darlington. He was fast in Nashville, which is also concrete. He is a 6-time winner here, including one back in 2018. So the Bushes just mop up at Bristol. The 750 speed means that Busch might be a better cash game play than tournament play. I think that you have some leeway to be underweight on Busch in tournaments because he hasn't been as fast in the 750 package. So keep that in mind. His track record, though, does mean that I will be there, even if I'm not necessarily above weight on him relative to the field. I'd also say that Ryan Blaney, pretty fun sleeper option, potentially a pivot off of Busch here. So Blaney, pretty volatile, but he can win this race. I think I would definitely say that for sure. I'm going to rank this tier Logano 1, Kurt Busch 2 for the safety, but I could see again being underweight. Blaney is 3, Kevin Harvick is 4, Martin Truex Jr. 5, and Brad Keselowski 6. Truex has really bad history at Bristol, but Keselowski kind of seems like he's out to lunch, so I'm not going to touch him. Truex I'd rather use over Keselowski for this week. The mid-range is Christopher Bell at $9,700 through Tyler Reddick at $8,500. Ross Chastain is in this tier. He is the headliner here, given how good he has been during the playoffs, and not often this week. I'm not gonna deviate. I'm not gonna give some hot take. No, I'm not going off. He was awesome in Nashville, very good on concrete in the Xfinity Series, so I'm still there. But if you use Chastain at $9,500, you need another low salary playoff driver to get in a third guy there. I do like Busch and Blaney in the tier above this, but 2 other drivers down here to consider are Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell. Bell is $9,700. He will start 6th, so I'd bet as a result of that, he's pretty low rostered. He's right between Chastain and Busch. Both those guys will be popular, so I think Bell, an amazing tournament level play this week, and I want to be overweight here because Bell was great on concrete in the Xfinity Series. He won 3 times across 8 races between Bristol and Dover. He has 3 top 5s in this package this year. One of those came last week at Richmond, so I desperately want to be overweight on Christopher Bell for tournaments this week. I think he is an elite pivot off of Chastain and Busch. I'm going to be there pretty heavily for sure. As far as Bell in the Xfinity Series, he won just once at Bristol in 2019. He won one of those 2 races. The reason he didn't win twice is because Tyler Reddick won the other one. Reddick hasn't been as good in this package as Bell has, but he has a lot of overlap with Larson in terms of which tracks they run well at, and Larson is outstanding here. Reddick had a 10th place average running position at Bristol in the second race last year, finished 4th in that race, so I like him a bit more than Bell for cash games. He's starting lower in the race. He has a lower salary. Both these guys are pretty fun. So I'm going to rank this tier Chastain 1, Reddick 2 for cash games, Bell 3, but Bell might be the best guy in this tier for tournaments. I don't know. Probably still Chastain, but I like Bell a lot too. All both. Why not? Byron is 4, Almirola 5, Alex Bowman, number 6. The value tier is Austin Dillon at $8,000 through Daniel Suarez at $6,300. This is a really good tier. And weirdly, two of the guys I like most, even not considering salary, are actually starting near the bottom of this tier or have salaries near the bottom of this tier. Those guys are Daniel Suarez and Bubba Wallace. Suarez, $6,300 starting back in 21st. He almost won the Bristol dirt race. That does not matter because of how different the track was, but not going to say no to it. Suarez ran well here when he had good equipment. He finished top 10 at both Dover and Nashville, the 2 concrete races this year. So I think Suarez at $6,300 is in play for cash games. If you use him, it makes it a lot easier to get to Chastain in cash. I'd like to get to Chastain in cash. So I think Suarez, really solid option for this week at $6,300, really moves the needle. So definitely considering it for this week. Wallace also has a good track record at Bristol. He was top 10 here last year in bad equipment. He was 14th the year before that as well. His best 750 race so far this year was in Nashville on concrete. He's starting 28th, $7,000. I prefer Suarez between the two. I don't think Wallace is a cash game consideration, but I do like both these guys a ton. Suarez over Wallace, but I do like both. I also like Matt DiBenedetto, Chase Briscoe, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in this tier. They're all place differential guys with some upside. DiBenedetto almost won here back in 2019 with Levine Family Racing. Briscoe had a win, 2 runner-ups at Bristol in the Xfinity Series. He also won at Dover, Stenhouse, 4 career top 5s of this track. He shockingly wrecks a lot here. Who could have guessed Ricky Stenhouse Jr. would wreck? But I'm still there. The upside's there. So this is a great tier. This value tier is amazing. It makes me feel better about being able to get to more of the studs, jamming in those guys. I think this tier being strong does help things quite a bit. The punting tier is Chris Buescher at $6,000 on down. Buescher is another potential salary saver. He is $6,000 starting 25th. Finished 8th in this race last year. He actually had a 5th place run at Bristol when he had really bad equipment back in 2016. So I think Buescher can scoop some place differential. Again, not as high on him as Suarez, but I do like him. His teammate, Ryan Newman, also fine. $5,800 starting 24th. Just doesn't have the best upside. So Buescher is the primary punting option. And then Newman, after that, it gets a little bit more shaky. Trying to look at some other guys here. Maybe we could talk up. Eric Jones, fine. He was good at the dirt race. Been fine here when he was in good equipment. He's not anymore, though. I like Corey LaJoie's talent. I think that helps, but I think to me it's more about Buescher and Newman here. But Suarez really the star among the guys below $7,000. Let's finish up here with the picks to win for the Bristol night race on Saturday. I'm going to go with my guts over my simulations. That worked last week because Truex was not the most likely winner in my simulations. I overwrote that and decided to go with him anyway, and he won. So we'll do that again. I'm going to pick Kyle Larson to win on Saturday night. Just really hard for me to say no to a guy who was amazing here back in the day, has been amazing on concrete, and I'm picking a guy straight up, not relative to his betting odds. So I'll go Kyle Larson as my pick to win in the high tier. In the low tier, we are going right back to the well. Going right back to the well with Christopher Bell. Once again, he's been awesome to us recently. He's had top 5s and at Road America, top 5 at New Hampshire, top 5 at Richmond. All those times he was the lower salaried win pick. So let's run it back one more time. Christopher Bell, the win pick below $10,000, $9,700 on FanDuel for this week. Very fair salary, and I would not be shocked at all if he were to potentially pick up a win and push his way into the second round on Saturday night. That is all that we have here for this week's podcast previewing Bristol. Again, it should be a delight to watch a cutoff race once again at Bristol. Not a ton of I don't think we'll see a ton of desperation outside of maybe like William Byron or something like that. But overall, just a good race no matter what. I'm excited to see how things play out on Saturday and get set for next week in round number 2 as well. If you've got more questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Again, check out all the NFL podcasts or all the podcasts we've got here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, NFL, UFC, NASCAR, of course, MLB, PGA. I think the Ryder Cup contest, if I had to guess. So a lot of stuff here. Hit subscribe and leave a rating and review if you like what you hear. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for this week. Good luck to you with your NASCAR DFS lineups for Bristol. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.